Hello, sports fans. This is another episode of Biz Talk with Sean. And today we're going to be talking about leadership. And I'm not going to down on anybody's leadership styles. Instead, I'm going to point out great leadership that we've been seeing lately. And I'm also going to tie this up with a story of a leader that I knew personally and a kind of Napoleon Dynamite story that actually happened to me. Like one of those things that just doesn't happen to people. Including being in front of an entire school where your name is announced, you hear gasps around the crowd. Yeah, that happened. So let's go into this because I want to talk about leadership. Governor Cuomo, he is an example of leadership. So why do I say that? Governor Cuomo he came out candid, he gave the facts, and he even tried to add some levity to the situation. Like when he announced New York's special brand of hand sanitizer, he said it has a very floral bouquet and all of that. I got the joke. And he was trying to put a little bit of levity or a little bit of humor into the situation. And he came forward with nothing but the facts, the solid facts. And that is valuable in this time. Okay, here's where we stand, here are the barriers that we're running into, here are the actions we're taking to overcome those barriers, and here is where we are lacking. He was very candid, he was very straightforward, and he gave you what you needed to know. Okay, distance yourself socially, and hopefully make things a little bit easier to get over this and to get over the hump. I very much admire the man, both him and his brother. Chris Cuomo, he is a newscaster, journalist, and I respect the man, despite the controversy that came about a year ago, not even a year ago. But Governor Cuomo, he has a team, an assembled team of experts that are addressing this situation. And that's important because as a business owner or as an employee, it's valuable to know what your team is capable of. Now let me give you a couple of personal examples of leadership. So some of my earliest jobs in management, I have never once lost a district or regional contest, not myself nor my team. And I have trained top district and regional teams for multiple companies. But we'll go back to some of the earlier ones. So at Blockbuster Video, back in the older days, this was my first management position, and my team wasn't performing at the best. So what I did was I led from the front, and that's exactly what Governor Cuomo is doing, is you lead from the front and you set an example of dialogue and how to communicate with your constituents, or in this case, customers. So I showed my team how it was done, and my numbers exceeded anybody else's in the district. And I pushed hard for it because that goes into the 4 rules of business, which many of you don't know yet because the episodes, like I may be airing those episodes with a green screen background just so that you can get a jump start if you're trying to start your own business or grow your business. Maybe you want to be an entrepreneur like I am-ish. So let's jump into what are the qualities of a solid leader. And I'm going to use my second management job as an example. My district manager was named Sean as well, S-H-A-W-N, not S-E-A-N. So he spelled his name wrong. And I mean, he was just a great mentor. He was the one that taught me that you should always have 2 people ready to replace you at all times. Why is this important? Because having 2 people to replace you, it shows responsibility to your company, and it also shows confidence. Because to have people ready to replace you, you have to mentor them and groom them to be able to replace you. Meaning you have to give them additional responsibilities, which I'll outline in a second. But going back to Hollywood Video, when I entered in, 4 managers before me failed. I walked into the back office with all the paperwork, and it was just stacked. No organization whatsoever, and we're talking years of paperwork just piled up and shoved into pretty much every crevice that they could find. That was a pain to get through and just try and organize. It was a pain. And when I went in there, the store was suffering a great deal of loss. My store's title was Cornerstone. It was on the corner of University and Rural in Tempe, Arizona. So it was the last big box dinosaur store with like, I think we had 13,000 movies or something like that. It was an incredible amount. And you better believe I took some home every day because I love movies. That's just, it was raised into me. And my team, I got to know my team. And that's something that you have to do. If you're a manager or if you're a business owner, get to know your team. And the reason being is you don't just have to lead from the front, because I was the first person to scrub a toilet there. I make sure of that. Why? Because it shows all of my followers, my subordinates, which millennials don't like that term, but these were people answering to me. And I scrubbed the first toilet because I wanted to show them I'm not ever going to ask any of you to do anything I'm not willing to do personally. And that's a measure of leading from the front. Now, within our first month, I ended up rebranding the store because you couldn't see down the aisles, which is why theft was so high, or at least that was my conclusion. And you know how you walk around and on your way out, you'll see like, oh my gosh, there are these buckets of kettle corn, which by the way was amazing. And you've got these candies and all of that. That wasn't there. People could just walk straight out. There was no impulse buying, which impulse buys are a huge thing, especially in a service-based industry. Is impulse buys, that's why you have what's called an upsell. So you basically say, hey, would you like to add this to your meal? Or would you like to add this to your checkout? And people who bought this also tend to buy that. That's the Amazon version of it. And none of that was existing. So literally from day one, I was getting to know my team, and by the end of week one, I had rebranded the entire store. Now, what do I mean with that? I was reorganizing everything to reduce theft and to direct people through kind of a pathway like IKEA, to where they have to pass by impulse buys. Doesn't matter what section they were going through, they had to pass by certain areas with impulse buys. Because, I mean, who doesn't love a Twix, right? And thankfully, I had an assistant manager who I somewhat don't understand why they didn't give him the management position. I somewhat understand why, and I somewhat understand why not. Because he asked for overtime so he could help me remodel the store, rebrand it. And he was just fantastic. I loved my team. And within the first month, our numbers over LY, which LY means last year's numbers. And then how that's measured is you can measure it by quarter, month, week, or day. And so ours was measured by month. So let's say the month of March was measured against the month of March the previous year. Our store went from 478th in the nation for growth to 7th within a month. And our theft reduced by over 50%. Now, I don't necessarily accredit that to my magical insight. I accredit that to previous managers not necessarily being qualified for their positions, or at least prepared for their positions. So, when I said get to know your team, this assistant manager, he'd been there for several years. I believe it was 2.5 years. I believe his name was Chris. I try to remember him because I really like those guys. My whole team was awesome. And then there was another person who used to be a manager and decided she didn't want the responsibility. She had a kid, she just wanted to step down a little bit. And what that told me from both of them is, okay, give them autonomy. And in the case of the assistant manager, when it came to upsells or any of that at the counter, like promoting the rewards program, I had to coach him. And what I ended up doing was, before I even tried to coach any of them, I got to know each one of them on a personal level. And I don't mean, are you dating anyone? No, none of that, none of that. Ask them about their professional goals. Ask them about, okay, what are your interests? What are your hobbies? See what motivates them. Do they just want to get a pat on the back? Like one of my employees. She just wanted a pat on the back when she did something right. And she didn't respond well to any criticism. So if she ever did something wrong, I just mostly kept silent, and let her know, hey, maybe you should catch me a little bit later. I'll teach you how to do this. You know, it was encouraging. It wasn't discouraging. And then when she did something good, I let her know she did something good because that's what she wanted. That was her motivation. And when it came to Chris, I let him know, okay, you're doing an awesome job. When he did an awesome job, like when he did something I was grateful for or that I valued, or he did something that just knocked it out the park, yeah, I let him know. And then I had another team member that he wanted competition. He was bored. He was very bored. And so I gave him that competition. Part of leading from the front, in my opinion, is to be as good as the best person on your team whenever possible. And so when it came to selling rewards programs, I gave that gentleman a run for money, and he gave me a run for my money too. A couple times he actually outpaced me and beat me. And I told him the following day, like, great job, but don't expect it to continue. I'm going to come back with a vengeance. And that gave him motivation because he thrives on competition. I do too. A lot of times I've competed with my own numbers. But understanding your team and what motivates them, what drives them, allows you to essentially cater your management style individually. But let me go a little bit further before I go into like catering your management style, because I'm going to tell you that beautiful story about a man I really, really admire. So Governor Cuomo, he also recognizes the expertise of his team. He understands, okay, this person knows things that I don't, and I value their opinion. And that's why with his candor and with deferring to all of the people that essentially report to him, but they are experts in their own field. Those individuals recognize that their opinions are valued and their opinions should be voiced, and he takes in those opinions. Now, will he always agree with them? Probably not, because we can't always agree with everybody, but taking that input and putting the whole picture together is the job of a governor, or in my case, a manager. Taking in all of the expertise and all of the feedback from the people at the ground level or people experts in their specific field, and then rendering a result in a concise manner. That means he comes to you very candidly, tells you what he can do, what his limitations are, how they're trying to overcome those limitations, and gives confident advice on how to overcome this pandemic. Because novel means we don't have a natural immunity to this virus. Nobody in the world has developed a natural immunity the same way that some people, after you get the flu of a certain type, you're mostly immune to that flu moving forward, unless your immune system is compromised. So let me tell you the story. Okay, this is a fun one for me. It applies to the fourth rule of business, which is take time for yourself. So in this episode, I'm going to take time for myself, celebrating somebody that I believe should be celebrated. His name is John Williams. And I'm not talking the composer for the music to Jurassic Park or Avatar. No, he was a junior high choir teacher. Let me tell you this story. So he demonstrated leadership because he took a ragtag. I got in at midway through 7th grade. I joined choir, 2nd semester. And he took this ragtag group of men, young men, that most of them saw it as a bird course. Like you just fly through it, all you got to do is hum a few tunes and fine, you get an A. And that covers your extracurriculars. That's how a lot of us viewed it. I was more curious because I like to sing, so let's check it out. And if you heard our choir to begin with, you'd say there is no reason why any of us should have been in choir. Seriously, like 2 or 3 of us should have. And Mr. Williams, he got to know us. As we grew, if we wanted to spend time with him after school and learn more, he would take that personal time with each one of us. He knew all of our names, but he also knew our vocal capabilities. He memorized it, and he taught multiple classes throughout the day. And I just thought that was an amazing thing, the personal touch that he had, understanding each one of us. He observed us. In fact, I really, really got into choir when I saw the structure of it, and I remember the first time we hit a perfect note. like vocal vibrations, they go up, down, right? Well, imagine an entire choir, 4 different parts, going up and down together. That's one of those notes that gives you goosebumps. You feel it in your bones. It was amazing. Excuse me. Yeah, allergy season just started. Terrible timing. But what he ended up doing was he taught us, he taught us scales, and he invoked discipline. Because I remember one time we were singing a song called Polly Vaughn. It's a very morose song, and we hit a perfect note. It was amazing, and we all celebrated it. These people, this group of young men that didn't want to be there, were inspired by the teachings of John Williams, the choir teacher for junior high, and we kept on pushing through and learning, but we got a little bit overconfident, and it showed. We were slacking off the following day. And what he ended up doing was we wouldn't respond to the direction that Mr. Williams was giving us, so he made us sing scales the entire day. Like the entire class from that point forward. And then the following day, he threatened us with scales, and one person decided to act out. And yeah, we ended up singing 3 measures of scales, and do you want to continue or do you want to act right? I remember that. It was very cool because it showed a type of leadership, and I guess you should say a punishment and reward system, to where, okay, doing a remedial task, you're going to do it unless you do what you know you're supposed to be doing. That was a good lesson. And as we move forward, we began to develop. Some people dropped off from choir, but most of us stayed. And it was pretty amazing to hear because Mr. Williams was listening to us very acutely. What do I mean by that? I was one of a few people that mid-concert, I would switch from bass to tenor 2. Meaning I would actually walk over to that section and position myself between 2 people. And we had a few others. I won't name names, but we had a few others that were doing that too because Mr. Williams was listening. But where did this come from? He was listening to each and every one of us on a daily basis. He was paying attention to us and what our motivations were. For some of us, we wanted to laugh. And we would just, play off a little bit. And so he would play the theme song to Titanic on the piano, and he would just make these stupid faces. And I mean, you couldn't help but laugh at it. Like, you just couldn't help but laugh. And it brought levity to it. It took away the pressure of learning and focusing, and it gave us a little bit of a breather, which sometimes you have to do. That's why when I was at Hollywood Video, when we did something great, like go from 478th to 7th in the nation, yeah, I got us a pizza party. And I told my district manager, like, if you don't want to pay for it, I will. Because they earned it. They were paying attention, paying attention, learning, and they were growing. I was grooming them, and I was grooming 2 of the people that were interested because I learned their motivations, and I asked them, what are your career goals with Hollywood Video? And I said, okay, where do you want to grow with this? And they said, I'd like to be a manager. So I followed my district manager, Sean's advice, and I was training 2 of them to replace me. That shows confidence in your position, and it shows an interest in their development. That is key. Remember this, if you're a manager or a business owner, that is key, because you want managers that are learning from you. And what Mr. Williams taught me was the best way to learn is to teach. He would position me in the bass section between 2 struggling basses. One was very lightly spoken, or he's saying very softly. I'm not going to use technical terms for you. But he sang very softly, and the other one was I was about to say forte. I'm not going to use technical terms, but he was loud and he was gruff. And the harmony wasn't there, so he put me between them, and he said, okay, try to go right between where their pitch was off and their vocal quality. And they listened, because I was able to talk to them on their level and say, okay, try to mimic me, and I was giving them coaching. Okay, lighten up your tone just a little bit. Try to take a more warm tone. And this one over here, Okay, sing from your diaphragm more. Sing from your stomach. Use your stomach muscles more. And that was right before we hit that perfect note on Polyvon. And then we had another gentleman over in the tenor section doing the same thing, the tenor 1 section and the tenor 2s. The baritones, they were actually pretty good. But knowing where to position your people according to their interest, I was staying after every single day, and I was practicing at home every single day because I enjoyed choir. I like singing. And when I was in management, I understood I learned what my team wanted, what was their motivation, what were their aspirations, and I was catering to that. I was teaching the ones that wanted to be taught, and the ones that didn't want to be taught, I gave them coaching here and there as needed, but those that wanted autonomy, I gave them autonomy. Like if they earned it and they deserved it, then yes, I will give them autonomy. But when you delegate somebody authority and you tell them to teach another, then I can tell you from 10 years of college tutoring, the best way to learn is to teach, because you're going to get asked questions that you never thought of before, because you got a completely different person from a completely different background learning from you. And if you want to mold them, if you want to groom them to take over or to grow into a management position, knowing how to teach them is a growing process. It's a developing process. You will never be an expert at teaching. You'll always be growing yourself and learning, how can I identify with this person? For example, when I tutor, all of my students except for my current one, which I don't know if he'll graduate with honors or not. It all depends on his final class. But all of my students otherwise have graduated with honors. And that's because I found their method of learning. And that was because of teaching. Like I've read the books. I mean, I've gone through my own degree, plus I've helped people with their degrees from beginning to end, bachelor's and master's, all the way through. I mean, I know my stuff, right? But being able to convey what you know comes from teaching. Like it's a constantly refining process. The best way to learn is to teach. And there are countless professors that will agree with that statement. And by grooming others, you show an interest in their career development. Or in the case of Mr. Williams, he showed a genuine interest in my vocal development. So fast forward, okay? So we got Canada Nationals. And this ragtag group that sounded like somebody was killing them, like somebody was trying to harm them. We turned from 7th grade on to 9th grade into a legitimate choir. And I remember one of the judges for the Canada Nationals saying, there is no reason a choir that young, yeah, that's right, there is no reason why a choir that young should sound like that. And that was music to our ears. And I'm going to get to my story in a second, but when we were all nervous to go to the Canada Nationals. Like, we weren't nervous to go there, we were nervous right before we sang. Every one of us was nervous that night, the night before. And then we got to sing in this beautiful cathedral. What made us nervous, and what should make Mr. Williams proud if he ever watches this or sees it, is we all wanted to, one, make him proud. We wanted to prove ourselves to him, but then we also wanted to prove his leadership style and his capabilities as a choir director to these Canada Nationals. We wanted to show him off. We had loyalty to him. When you show an interest in your employees, when you show an interest in the people you manage, it inspires loyalty from them to you because you're leading from the front. That's why I scrubbed a toilet in every single management position I had. I was the first to scrub a toilet because I don't want any of them to think that I'm going to ask them to do anything that I'm not willing to do myself. And Mr. Williams, man, we frustrated him so many times, but when we got up to sing at the Canada Nationals, we sang 2 songs. I believe it was 2 songs. And the first one, for the first third of the song, we were flubbing it. We sounded like an average choir. And then I remember the look he gave us. He gave us this look, and we immediately responded. It was amazing. But he gave us this look that said, basically, You can do this, now do it. I remember that look, and so do some of our other choir mates. And sure enough, right after that, we hit a perfect note. Oh, it's the chills down your spine. I mean, it was a mezzo forte. It was basically a soft where the basses stood out, a soft rumble where the tenors were just light and airy, and then it built up to a crescendo, a forte, and it was amazing. It was fantastic to experience. And if you've never been in a choir with that, you wouldn't know what the experience feels like, but it was amazing. And yeah, Mr. Williams, he was one heck of a leader because he taught us the fundamentals of, he pushed us through. How to explain this? So you have to watch a choir director, but you also have to read the notes, follow the notes, and sing them in perfect pitch according to what you read ahead of time on how loud it should be or how soft it should be, what the tone should be. There's a lot going on when you sing as a choir and you're listening to your choir mates and everything, the people around you. There's a lot that goes into it. And he taught us that from scratch. That's amazing and profound. He was a leader. And then you got Governor Cuomo, who is teaching us from a very basic level what we should be doing and what we should be anticipating. And in management, it is pivotal to get to know your team and to direct them. And I don't mean get to know your team, like I said, don't ask them if they're dating anyone. Please don't ask that. But a leader inspires. A leader directs those underneath him or her to be the best that they can be. And when opportunity presents itself, they coach, they groom, they mentor. And they mentor according to that person's aspirations. Not every one of us wanted to stay after for choir, but I was one of the ones that was there every chance I got. And Mr. Williams recognized that in me and in other students. And he groomed that. And then he put me on stage. Now to the story. So I was singing the national anthem. And I was one of those kids that got really, really teased and bullied and all of that. I was a nerd. I was overweight. I had acne. I had tons of stuff wrong with me, right? And he put me up in front of the entire school during an assembly, every single grade. And we're talking over 1,000 students. I think it was 1,200 at the time. And you could hear an audible gasp when they announced my name. Like you could hear a gasp around the crowd like, and there were these twin sisters that played in orchestra, and one of them started me off on a note the day before in practice, and my voice cracked. It was half an octave too high, meaning I was singing about 6 notes higher than I should have been. And yeah, 5 or 6. And Mr. Williams said, go with it, right before I got up there to sing. He didn't say it, but he mouthed it, go with it. And I remember getting up there, and I started off strong. And you could see faces in the crowd just like, whoa, I did not expect that from him. Like, you could see that. And I'm singing strong, but then you get to that high note, and I cracked. I didn't just crack in front of the entire school to another gasping crowd, but then I cussed into the mic. I said GD, which, I mean, you understand the acronym, but I said that into the mic, and then the show must go on, so I continued to sing through it. And you could see the principals over there like, do we pull him off the stage? Like, what do we do here? What do we do? Because I don't think anybody's ever done that while singing the national anthem. Okay, that was not a proud moment. And this was literally right after Canada Nationals, if I remember right. No, it was right before it, Yeah, that was fun. And then what Mr. Williams did afterwards, I won't forget this. He kept putting me in front of people. He kept putting me on stage. And he told me the next day, I want you to sing this. And he had me sing it at that octave. The same octave that I flubbed. And then I got it right that time. Where I failed was I didn't trust in his leadership. I was second-guessing myself and my own capabilities. But he knew I could pull it off. And I did. I just didn't do it in the moment. And those kind of failures happen. Your top people on your team aren't always going to be like pristine. We are all human, and that's something to recognize. But what he did, Mr. Williams, he stepped back and he said, yep, you messed up. Now get it right this time. And that was awesome. And then the Canada Nationals, when he gave us that look, we all felt that look. We talked about it after Canada Nationals were done, after we sang. And it was outstanding. And you could see the pride. That's one thing I can tell you is I am so proud of my students. From tutoring and all of that, and consulting some of the businesses I've helped that really listened. I am so proud of them and their success. And he was proud of us. I mean, he was bragging. And Governor Cuomo, after this is done, I guarantee Governor Cuomo is going to be bragging about the capabilities of his team. He knew when to defer to their expertise. He knew when they knew more than he did. And he listened to them. Mr. Williams, he recognized people who were stronger in their craft and people who didn't have as much of an interest. He understood their motivations, and he groomed the ones that were capable. And one other story I'm going to tell you, which, yeah, I'm going to get personal on this one. My grandmother had a strong part in raising me. And I got to attend one concert with my grandmother. Mr. Williams, Mr. John Williams of Spanaway Junior High, choir teacher, invited Jubilant Sykes, a world-celebrated baritone, to come teach us a lesson for a day. And he came in, and I was arrogant. Okay, here's another one. So, Jubilant Sykes, he came in and he sang, and he was trying to teach us one of the basic fundamentals of classical vocal training, okay? So Mr. Williams brought in an expert to teach us and refine our skills. Okay, that's where consultants come into play when it comes to a business. So Jubilant Sykes, he came in and he started teaching us enunciation, like how you should pronounce your verbs when you're singing to get your point across further. And he was right. And he taught us, and our class learned. And we actually improved literally the next day. It was amazing. It was awesome. I love to see development in people. And then, of course, when he asked for volunteers, I raised my hand because my little arrogant self, yeah. So I got up there, and he was trying, the phrase that he had of me singing ended with an S. And so the first time I tried to make it sound like a snake, like, and then he said, no, throw more into it. He was listening. Mr. Sykes was listening. And he heard my vocal capabilities before I started goofing off. He said, do it right. Well, he basically said, do it right. And so I didn't do like the hissing sound. And then I ended with a flourish. Like I got down on my knee and, at the end of it. And then he told me to do it again. And the reason he told me to do it again was he gave me a look that said, get it right. Focus. And so the next time through, yeah, I did it with everything I had in me. I caught his look and I paid attention. When you admire somebody in your field, in a field that you're interested in, pay attention to them. If they give advice, pay attention. Because that's going to build you as a leader, that's going to build you as a manager, and if you're just an employee, that's going to build you as an employee. Pay attention to those people that you admire that are good at what you want to do. Pay attention. Because Mr. Sykes showed leadership. He's released 5 albums, if I remember right. I own 2 of them because I very much admire the man. He is a world-celebrated baritone. And Mr. Williams was the type of leader that brought in this world-celebrated baritone to our choir. And we were offered tickets to his show. And it was a wonderful concert. It was the only concert I ever attended with my grandmother before she passed. And she had been raising me up until that time. And it was a treasured moment that I will never forget. I mean, she was as giddy as a schoolgirl when she was talking about him, I want him to sign it, like, I can't wait to meet him. Like, she was a true aficionado of the musical arts. I mean, Irish tenors and all of those, like, she had every DVD. And it was a profound moment for me. And sometimes you'll find those with leaders too. Is I've had a few mentors that to this day I very deeply cherish them. That's what building loyalty does, but you have to lead from the front to build loyalty, and you have to get to know your team on a personal level. What motivates them? What drives them? Where do they aspire to be? And then build on that. If they are enthusiastic, grasp onto it and offer them coaching, offer them mentorship, offer them grooming. Say, hey, I want you to grow because I need to have 2 people to replace me if I ever move up. And the great thing about that is, let's say one of them exceeds you. Let's say they pass your position and you get them promoted to manager, and then they get above you in a higher management position. They're going to have loyalty to you and they're going to bring you with them. Leadership, like Governor Cuomo, is valuable. And I hope that you all take this lesson to heart. Leadership begins by leading from the front, being candid, being honest, and being transparent. Identify the motivations of your team and how driven they are to succeed. If you're a business owner, if you're a manager, it doesn't matter. Because you have something to offer to each one of them, and by offering your guidance, your mentorship, your coaching to them, you will grow as well. I've got a decade of college tutoring to back that one up. And every professor I've ever met will tell you that teaching is the best way to learn, because you'll get questions that you never thought you would get. I hope this show inspires some of you, and I hope that you learn from this. Please be safe out there. Social distancing is a necessary thing. At the VBA, one of my leaders, his name is Warren Pendergast. He directs the VBA, Victory for Veterans Alliance, so vva-usa.org. And he is one of the at-risk people because he had major heart surgery. And my girlfriend is also at risk and may have contracted COVID-19. And she's at risk because she has asthma. Please take into account the collateral damage that not listening to people like Governor Cuomo give you about social distancing. Because this is a very real pandemic, and the people that we care about can be influenced. Warren Pendergast, one heck of a leader, he also values expertise. He understands the expertise of individuals on his team that are volunteering because they're passionate about it, about helping homeless veterans. And he delegates to us different tasks according to our expertise. He got to know his team. These are examples for you. He was 24 years in the U.S. Navy and departed as an E8 and has accomplished 2 business degrees since then. So I hope you learn from this, and I hope this inspires some of you to be better leaders, or to at least aspire to be better leaders. I'm going to wrap this up, but I'll be bringing you more shows soon to come. Be safe, y'all.